We bring in Doug Gottlieb, host of the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio, Fox Sports college basketball analyst. Doug joining us from Indianapolis as he's doing the Big Ten tournament on Compass Radio. Recapping what we just heard, Duke right now, that game against Florida State is not going to be played because somebody on the staff team has tested positive for COVID. We don't know that, but it feels like Duke's season is probably over. I'm wondering about the rest of the ACC tournament here, Doug. What's going to happen here?
I don't know. I mean, you have to obviously have contingency plans because, you have contact tracing. And then, what happens with anyone else who came in contact with them. But what you asked the question, are they done? I was just texting with Jeff. And the logic is, again, it's not contact tracing. It's somebody has a positive test, right? So that means then there's a quarantining. And I'm in Indy where they moved all the Big Ten teams here. And then the Big Ten teams that advance the tournament are going to stay here for up to a month. And of course, they have the extra, the tournament's going to start a day later, again, so that there's a little extra quarantining and it becomes a bubble. But I mean, this is part of the issue. I guess my question is this. I understand that first responders and senior citizens need to get the vaccine. Why are we not vaccinating players? Somebody explain that to me. I know that Adam Silver came out and said, we're not going to make our players get vaccinated. I've talked to NBA coaches, NBA players. They are generally getting vaccinated, without broadcasting it. I don't understand why we should go to all these leaps, but here's something that people don't know. So I did the SoCon conference 3 days ago, and then the CAA, the team that loses still has to test for 5 days. Their season normally done, like Mercer lost to UNC Greensboro. They have to test for 5 days because if Greensboro has positive tests, UNC Greensboro doesn't go. Mercer does go if they don't have positive tests. It's just a wacky year. And obviously we're on the 1 year anniversary of sports shutting down. And here Duke is the biggest program in college basketball, losing any chance of a postseason because of one positive test.
Did they need that win over Florida State to get into the tournament?
Yes. I mean, look, Louisville helped. But they had an initial bump there late in the season, but it wasn't enough. They had sustained too many losses, and people have to understand that the ACC is really down this year. Yeah. And I mean, look, it's really hard to tell a lot of things. Like Louisville, for example, they played Wisconsin this year with, I think, 6 or 7 guys, but they didn't have 4 starters. So they lost by 50 to Wisconsin. This is around Christmas time. It's hard to tell sometimes results of who actually is good. And then some of these teams have come out of 2-3 weeks of quarantine and they play a game and they're not really representative of. That's why, I wanted to come on and say, like, hey, there's a couple teams out there like Oregon people should bet on because they're going to be massively underseeded because of all the litany of things that went on in their season. But this obviously trumps that.
How did Duke get here in the first place, Doug? It feels like they had a top 5 recruiting class. Don't they have a top 5 recruiting class every year?
No, well, you have to understand it's different. There's a couple things that went against them. Okay. First, you have, the top 3 freshmen in the country, right? Jalen Suggs goes to Gonzaga. And then Cade Cunningham, instead of going to North Carolina or Kentucky, he goes to Oklahoma State. And then, USC has Evan Mobley. His dad's on staff, and he goes to USC. So you cut out 3 of the top 5, top 10. Then you cut out 3 or 4 more who were going to go to college, or maybe Jalen Green, for example, and they go to the G League Ignite. So you basically cut out the top 10 from Kentucky and from Duke. Then you factor in, you lose your point guard. You lose your, they're not taking the depth of transfers that other people are taking. And they're just, you don't replace. It's really hard when you can't replace stars with other stars. And now all of a sudden you're at the same place as everybody else. And then you throw in the quarantining and some of the stuff. And they're not alone. I mean, this is Kentucky, same thing. Some of them made some bad choices in terms of who they've taken. But I think this is a big story in college basketball in that the blue bloods who normally feast on those top 10, top 15 guys, now they're recruiting 15 to 25 or 15 to 50. And those are good players, but they're not the type of impact players who come, they're not Zion Williamson, they're not Cade Cunningham. They're not Jalen Green. They're not kids that can just carry you to an NCAA tournament. They don't have those guys. And that's why Kentucky's down. That's why Kansas is down. That's why Duke is down. It's because of the players more than anything else.
These teams that won't make the NCAA tournament, can you see them going to the NIT?
I mean, I would. More basketball, right? Like all these guys say, like, well, you go to their IG page and they're ball is life guys. All they want to do is hoop. But the reality is probably not. Remember the last time Kentucky went to the NIT, it was an abject disaster. It's like when an SEC school gets left out of the college football playoff and they just no show in a bowl game and some guys, opt out. I would guess no. I would guess and for people who don't know, it's at North Texas at the Super Pit. They're going to have 16 teams in a bubble. It'd actually be pretty cool. But I would guess no, they will not.
He's Doug Gottlieb, host of the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio, and, of course, covering the Big Ten tournament there. How many teams get in from the Big Ten?
All of them. Let's just put them all in. Everyone. Oh, let me tell you, we got to put them all in.
Not Indiana.
Let's put Northwestern in, and let's put Penn State in. And Maryland, and India. I don't know what you do, Dan. There's some – Indiana's bad, man. They've lost a lot of games late. I don't know how you it's just weird, though, because you have – Iowa's finished strong. Obviously, Michigan won the league. But again, Michigan, because of shutdown, they didn't play at Illinois. They played Illinois once, didn't have their best player, and they got housed by Illinois. But you got this group, Minnesota. I don't think they're getting in. Even though they won last night, but they didn't win a road game all year. But they crushed Michigan when they played them at their place. There's this list. My guess would be somewhere around 7. And just throw them in a hat. And once you get past the big boys, I think Michigan State's getting in. I think rightfully so. And I do think the win over Duke way back when helps. And then, of course, beating Michigan here last game of the regular season helps. The ACC is the question to me. And I know I live West Coast. And by the way, thank you to let me fill in for you, even though I know everybody complains that I suck in comparison to you. But I get a chance to see the West Coast schools, and the Mountain West has a couple of teams that are really good, like Utah State and Boise, that they, by my estimation, belong in. But what do I know about basketball? I only played it and covered it for like 20 years. So I think it's going to be interesting because there's always been a slight East Coast bias, but I've never been one of these East Coast bias guys. But because the West Coast schools have gone through such a difficult season with shutting down and not having their guys and not being able to practice. And Stanford played like 4 home games all year. I know they got blown out last night by Cal. They're terrible. But the point is, it was much harder to get the team to look right in the West Coast. And I do think that there's a little bit of benefit of the doubt that should go to a couple of those schools.
How much wiggle room does John Calipari have at Kentucky? Like, is he on the hot seat or a warm seat?
No, but I do think, like, college basketball is a change in here, right? Like, you're going to have to be more creative in recruiting. You take some guys, recently they've taken players that have transferred up, right? That's when you're in a low mid-major. Some have hit, some have missed. They're going to have to be creative and they're going to have to do better player evaluations. But like here's a perfect example. They took Devin Askew, who's from Mater Dei High School in Southern California. He could have been a high school senior this year. So, and obviously he's had a disappointing season. But they have to do a better job evaluating the point guard position, better job evaluating players. But I also think that you're playing against older kids. The reason the Big Ten schools are better is they have the highest recidivist rate. They have older dudes that are back. So Wisconsin has 2 guys starting in their starting lineup that's 24 years old. Like a 24-year-old is going to be better than a 18, 19-year-old. Just kind of facts. So I think some of it is the changing landscape of college basketball. How hot is this hot seat? I don't think you can have another season like this one. This was a bad year. It's a bad year. And next year, if you had another one of these, they would be like, hey, what are we doing here? Do you want to rethink things? But, he lost his ace recruiter to the NBA, and maybe everybody knew what was coming. And this is what was coming because it is not good. And the G League select thing is going to continue to take 5 or 10 kids. And, more and more schools are going to hire parents or siblings or whatever. And the trends are here. You got to find a way to get old and stay old if you want to win in college basketball.
Are we making enough of Gonzaga's undefeated regular season, going undefeated
No.
into the tournament? Should we
No.
be making more of it?
I don't know. I mean, Kentucky finished undefeated a couple years ago. So it has Wichita State undefeated a couple years ago. And there's kind of the difference in Gonzaga and Wichita State is they played some of the big boys. They didn't play Baylor like they're supposed to, but they played some of the big boys early in the year. And I mean, they were so much better than Kansas. It was silly. I mean, they have like 3 or 4 NBA players and a couple. They only play like 6 or 7. They are really, really good. Like I've been kind of playing with Twitter all year with the Gonzaga or the field. And I think Baylor's close. And I think, Michigan and Illinois are close, but I don't know if you saw the other night, they played BYU late. BYU put up 53, couldn't play better in the first half. And Gonzaga just downshifted and Jalen Suggs just took over late. They're good. They're competitive. They have bigs. They're not great defensively, but they have 2 point guards, a kid named Andrew Nemhart, who's from Canada, started at Florida for 2 years. So they're playing 2 point guard. So athletic ball handling is not a problem. Shooting's not a problem. They've been to a national championship game before. Like people think Gonzaga choked. They're the only school to be in the last 5 Sweet 16s. Gonzaga's legit. I don't think we're making a big enough deal of it because we do have a tendency to think of Gonzaga's, Adam Morrison crying in the loss to UCLA more so than we remember. They're one possession away from winning the national championship a couple years ago. They're the real deal. And no, we're not because they play in the WCC. But what's weird about it is you and I are old enough to remember 30 years ago, UNLV was in a far weaker league it was the PCAA, it was the Big West then, I can't remember, right? And nobody said anything about their league. Memphis was in Conference USA. We said a little bit about their league, was more about free throw shooting. They were dominant in lesser leagues and people didn't diminish their record because of their league. We do that about Gonzaga and I'm not really sure why.
Good to talk to you there. Have fun. Play nice in Indianapolis, Doug.
Why do you only want to see one video of my son's wet jump shot? I just,
God.
I can't fix my jump shot. I could fix my son's jump shot.
Doug sent me a video. He said, I heard your rant on Steph Curry. So he sends me a video of his son he's 11 years old playing a pickup game or some game there. And I didn't know it was your son because he made the 3. That's what I thought was. That kind of surprised me a little bit. And then Doug wants to send me another video. And I go, 1 video per day, Doug. Good God. Maybe a mixtape.
I'm proud of the guy, but he does it. You're right, dude. I mean, like the Steph Curry range thing is a real thing. And it's changed the way in coaching kids. You look at what's a good shot, what's a bad shot. And we were always taught, like, that's the thing about, you're talking about Larry Bird. I disagree with you. Like, bro, Magic Johnson, you forget how good he was backing dudes down, like old school one-on-one ball, like backing down. Obviously, the guys are more athletic now because of the training. That would be, in their primes, a much more competitive game than you forget how good Larry Bird, you don't forget how good Larry Bird was, right?
No. I'm just saying LeBron and KD can do what they want to do on the floor. Magic's brilliance is still seeing the floor, not necessarily being a great scorer.
But hold on though. The baby sky hook.
No, I got it. But Larry couldn't guard me, so now you got to guarding. He's guarding KD. I mean, come on, that's not fair. If you said Michael and Larry, now we have a conversation, Doug. Magic and Larry, no. I'd take KD and LeBron.
I think they're new and improved versions of each other, but I do like the point to me that I was trying to make is that we just Chris Mullin told me this, like they used to discourage people from shooting 3-point shots. Not that he couldn't shoot it, right? I mean, Larry Bird, the volume of threes weren't there. As you remember, he won the 3-point shooting contest without taking off the warm-up jacket. Walked in the locker room, said, "Who's getting second?" Shot the last one, had the one finger in the air, walked off the court, right? So there was a lot of things that he could do that he wasn't encouraged to do the way we encourage them to do now because we've learned how to work smarter, not harder.
That clears that up. Now, you can send me another video of your son shooting today. 1 per day.
Right now.
Well, let me go to break so I can get that. Thank you, Doug. That's Doug Gottlieb. He'll be working in Indianapolis Big Ten Tournament